So listen to this, Daddy. Last week, I had to fly to LA for a conference. So I board the airplane. Wait, was this for your... What is it that you do again? My animated series on ethics. Are you telling me people are actually still interested in hearing your mishigas? So do you want to hear my story? No. So I board the plane, and I'm just getting comfortable in my seat with my book, when all of a sudden, in the row next to me, a baby starts shrieking. Oof. Tell me about it. I'm thinking, the one time I'm not being woken up by Benjamin screaming, and I end up sitting next to this car alarm. And I mean, this baby was loud. Even the other parents who were sympathetic at first were getting annoyed. What's the problem? Change your seat. Thank you, Einstein. Of course I looked for a free seat. That's the first thing I did. But there were already like 10 people racing each other to find a seat. And the baby kept screaming. So what did you do? So I'm sitting there trying to figure out what to do. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see a little 3-year-old boy wiggling out of his seat. He toddles over to the screaming baby and offers the baby his own pacifier. Psh, wow. I know. Here we were, a plane full of grown-ups trying to solve our problem. Meanwhile, this 3-year-old boy was the only one trying to solve the baby's problem. The boy is the only one who actually heard the baby. Kindness is one of the most beautiful human qualities, Hanan. The challenge is to actually make the choice to stand in the other person's shoes and help them. Well, obviously, Daddy, everyone knows that kindness is important. It's just not the first thing on people's minds. I mean, singing Kumbaya is not going to help me pay my rent. Don't be so sure. I heard about this business professor on Oprah. Wait, you watch Oprah? Never mind. Hanan, listen to your father. Anyway. This professor analyzed hundreds of people in business, entertainment, sports, all kinds of professions. And he discovered that the people at the very top of their fields, the most successful, were the ones who gave, the ones who helped other people out, even their competitors. Well, it's easier to be giving and helpful once you're successful. You're not understanding. This professor discovered that giving is actually what made the people successful. How's that even possible? People who give are better team players and are more liked. And when you give to someone, they often return the favor. Givers tend to listen more, so they also learn more. Also, when you become known in your field as someone who is kind, giving and helpful, you have more people rooting for you. Think about it. When a person who's giving becomes successful, you're happy for them. How do you feel when a selfish person succeeds? Then again, Daddy, bottom line, if someone else scores the account I wanted, then I've lost it. You're thinking if they get a piece of the pie, it means one less piece for you. Exactly. But you're not taking into account that the pie can grow. In the short run, they may get ahead. But in the long run, both of you can succeed. Haven't you ever noticed, Hanan, that when you share, somehow there's always enough? It just seems counterintuitive, Daddy, that being giving and being competitive would mix. But they do. You can be competitive in a giving way. Unfortunately, Hanan, competitiveness can also be dominated by fear. We're afraid we're going to lose or that another person will take advantage of us. But if fear ensures my survival, then it's necessary. We don't have a choice. It's human nature. Choice is what makes us human. Imagine a hungry wild bear in the woods that finds some food. And just as the hungry bear is about to eat the food, he's approached by a strange bear who's dying of starvation. Now, what is the chance that the bear will say, you know what? You look a lot hungrier than me. Why don't you have this food? A wild animal has to follow his impulses, his drives. But human beings have a choice. A human being can even choose to not eat at all. When have you seen a wild bear choose to go on a diet? So we have choice. But in business and in life, we can't afford to be too nice. There are a lot of sharks out there, and we have to protect ourselves to ensure our survival. But that's a paradox. That's my point. When we're afraid, we lose our capacity to feel and react to another human being's pain because we're concentrating on our survival. But that capacity to feel another person's hurt and pain and help them is precisely what distinguishes us as human beings. So in the process of protecting our own interests, we actually turn ourselves into the animal. So what do you suggest? Connect with the other person by being giving, being kind, hearing their needs. It will break the cycle of fear, and it will allow both of you to grow. Daddy, are you saying we should just all be giving all the time and let other people walk all over us? Of course not. Even the business professor showed that there are some givers that are not able to recognize when someone is just taking all the time. Those givers get burnt out and are unsuccessful. Like everything, it's a balance. So ultimately, it's safer to focus on defending myself. Of course not. Reach out to the other person with a kind gesture. Ask them to explain their point of view. Stand in their shoes and then really listen. Even if you eventually discover that you have to defend yourself, you will be much more effective if you understand the person's point of view. But who knows? You might even become partners. But fear just shuts everything down. Fear and compassion don't mix. Fear and creativity don't mix. Fear just makes you afraid. But what if they don't make sense to me? What if they're fundamentally different than me? There was a patient in a psychiatric hospital who would spend the entire day standing in a twisted pose, his body all crooked, and he wouldn't ever move except to go to sleep and to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But as soon as he woke up in the morning, as soon as he finished the meal, he would get back into the pose and not move and not speak. Wait, is this a real story? Yes, it's real. I heard it from my friend Dr. Twerski. This patient was mentally ill, schizophrenia. For 52 years this went on. All the specialists tried everything to solve the problem, but nothing worked. Then, one day, a medical student saw the patient and said to him, "It must be exhausting standing like that all day. Go sit down." No response. So then, the medical student stands next to the patient and very carefully copies the exact pose of the patient and says, "Don't worry. I'll stand here like this. You can go sit down and rest for a while." And for the first time in 52 years, the patient goes and sits down. Wow. We always want other people to see our point of view, Hanan. But how often do we really try and see things from the other person's perspective? It requires us to choose to reach outside of ourselves and connect like the 3-year-old boy did when he heard the screaming baby. But Daddy, sometimes I just don't feel like I have a choice. But don't you see, Hanan? Choice is the only thing that we truly have. It's what makes life so complicated, but also so meaningful. I'm just a little surprised to hear you talk this way. What do you mean? Well, growing up, how much were you around? I basically saw you once a week on Saturdays for 4 hours? And your mind was always focused on your scientific calculations. I mean, you didn't seem to choose to connect with me. I chose to focus on my career. And the one time you actually gave me advice growing up was when I was 9 and I was being picked on at school. Do you remember your advice to me then? No. I told you, "Daddy, the kids in school are picking on me." What did you say? "The kids in school are picking on me." Listen to me. This is what you do. You warn them once. You warn them twice. The third time, you don't warn them. You hit them in the face. And if they get up, you hit them again and again until they don't get up anymore. Did I say that? Yep. I was a very different person then, Hanan. So, what happened? I guess that approach to life didn't make me a very popular person. Your mother left me, and then I lost my job, and then I lost the next job. But you were so smart, Daddy. You had a PhD in nuclear physics. Yes, but with all of my knowledge, I somehow never really learned to listen. So when did you magically become Daddy the kindness guru? I guess it happened after the divorce. I was dating a woman named Barbara. She had 2 dogs, 2 big hairy mutts. And one day she drove over the dogs to my house, broke up with me, and left me the 2 dogs. But they weren't your dogs. I know. You don't even like dogs. I know. So what did you do? I gave them a haircut. What? It was summer, and I figured they must be hot. I guess when I was cutting the dog's hair, there was no reward or calculation. I just felt they must be hot, and I cut their hair. And it felt good. The dogs felt good, and I felt good. It felt good to make them feel good. That's very kind of you. So what happened to the dogs? They lived with me for a while, and eventually they died. Oh. All we can do is try, Hanan. We can try to do the best we can. But kindness usually happens in small steps. Why do you think it's so difficult for us to be kind to each other, Daddy? I think it's because we're afraid. Afraid of making a mistake, of missing out, of being taken advantage of or being hurt. Afraid of failing to live up to people's expectations, especially our own. But when we choose to connect with another person through a selfless act of kindness, we break the cycle of fear. And we quickly discover that everyone is a human being, just like you and me. And that on the deepest level, we all want the same thing. We're all the screaming baby on the aeroplane, longing for someone to hear us and help us meet our needs.